Technical losses will be much more easily handled, both in investments, capital investments, and so on, that is required. But what is really disheartening, what is a blot on our society, what is a blot on all of us, is the high level of commercial losses. You have heard about that already, but it remains the same. We've had, during the last year or two, working with various consultants, we have addressed the issue of, we've been addressing the issue of commercial losses, theft of electricity, and let me say that the occurrence of theft seems to pervade our society at all levels, geographical areas, all of the different splinters into which we think, or we speak of Guyanese as being splintered society. It appears from the electricity end that all the splinters are together in the theft, the commercial losses of electricity, and that is a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing. It's a big blot. I feel embarrassed when our numbers are compared, as they are, compared at least on an annual basis with performance in other countries. I am greatly embarrassed, and I would expect and hope that you would transmit to all of Guyana that we all feel been objections, or people have complained that somehow they should not pay. They should not pay for losses. But the way a company runs, if the company is to survive, it has to receive enough money to cover all its costs. And therefore, here in GPL and in all systems, the price that the customers pay is reflective of the total costs of the operation, is intended to recover the total cost of the operation. Yes, losses is an issue, but if we took a position that customers should only pay what they use, let us say, and not consider losses as one of the charges to be included in costs, if that were to be the situation, the electric utility would close its doors, would be forced to close its doors soon. It will not have its money to buy fuel and keep itself running. But the effect of the losses we have, particularly the commercial losses, in my estimation, raises the cost of generation that we spoke of earlier, which might average about 23 cents per kilowatt hour. It raises it about 45%. It raises it to about 33 cents or so per kilowatt hour. That is the result of the losses that we have. Now, we must have some losses, so maybe one would be able to bring losses ever down to zero. But Barbados is at 6%, and that's something we should be aiming at. We should feel comfortable as a nation until we can get our losses down to a level like that. On the loss side, let me say where it brings more cost to us is that I have been kept abreast of some of the work being done. In particular, there were visits of persons from the Dominican Republic, which it seems has had its battle too with losses, and they have recommended to GPL some technological solutions, but they don't come cheaply. They raise the average cost of connecting up a customer in a built-up city area, say. They raise the average cost maybe from $50,000 something maybe as much as $250,000 per customer. And if you think of 10,000 customers, that raises the investment costs to about $200 million more for 10,000 customers. So these are significant things, and I hope that you would use your persuasive powers to join with GPL in persuading our fellow citizens to change our culture, for us to have a escucha. It's a great blot on our nation. I think that those are the main things I would like to speak about here. We're working to close the Mila. It's been a challenge, but it's a lot of money, and there are lots of issues, many issues of satisfying environmental requirements, environmental impacts, and so on. There are lots and lots of issues, apart from the large sum of money to be invested. But our hope is that it will close by the end of the year, or by sometime in the second half of the year. We'll break ground, and we want to get it done because we see a significant reduction in the cost of providing electricity here, say at Sophia. We see a reduction from a current figure of about 23 cents a kilowatt hour to a figure that we hope should be no more than 12 cents a kilowatt hour when we have power flowing from, energy flowing from a miner. So let me thank you for coming out. Let me invite you to stay for the day. And let me emphasize again that to create contentions in a society, create contentions amongst people is an easy thing to do. It's the easiest thing to do. There's no challenge in it. There's no achievement in it. The challenge is to create harmony. The challenge is to resolve the different viewpoints in a way that helps us, our society, our country to grow. And let me just take the point and say, you know, when we privatized GPL, when Dr. Jagan eventually accepted the privatizing GPL, in that arrangement, we had a sale of shares to the public at large. By this time, maybe the aspiration was that by this time, maybe all customers in GPL would have had some shares bought, so that we would bring together in each customer the desire for having high returns on their investments, and also the contrary desire to have electricity at the lowest price. If we are to develop, if our country is to develop, if our people are to develop, we have to be able to understand and grasp and resolve these contradictions within ourselves. We have to do that. We have to make the savings and invest the money to develop our country. And yes, we look for a return, we look for reliability and safety in our investments. But on the other hand, we are also the buyers and consumers of these goods and services. And therefore, we want the lowest price when we go to buy, but we have to learn to resolve these contradictions in our society. I think that so that our privatization of GPL at the time was a hope, with a hope that it would be an opportunity, a vehicle for this growth in our people. And this is still something we have to work at. We have to work at understanding the different demands and finding ways that the different, both the contrary demands can be satisfied if we are to get anywhere. So making contention in a society is the easiest thing. The easiest thing to do. What we have to work at is bringing understanding and harmonizing in our society. And that is what this seminar, press conference here today is all about, aiming to reduce the contradictions and all the disharmony and contentions that could be generated by a lack of understanding of the provision of electricity services in the country. I thank you very much and I wish you all success, and I beg to leave.
Thank you, Lorian. Members of the GPL board, members of management, Mr. Dindian, CEO, ladies and gentlemen of the media, good morning. As you would have gathered, Prime Minister had to leave, so let me recognize the many media houses that are here today. We do appreciate you coming. I know your news cycle day generally runs into the evening, so coming out this early could be a sacrifice. Why today's media engagement? We want to continue to build up our partnership with the media. We want to inform you of how we've done, what we're planning to do. And the media is one of our key stakeholders. We started this engagement last year, where we're having these public workshops, and we will continue to do these. And we hope that you continue to come and give us any feedback on how we can better improve what we provide to you. We're also doing this as part of our regulatory framework. With the institutional reforms that occurred in GPL 3 years ago, our reporting obligations to the public has been expanded. And part of that requires that we have at least 3 times annually engagement with the media and how we're doing. As many of you may be aware, every quarter we have obligations to submit to the PUC a detailed set of reports on how the company has done for the previous quarter. The PUC, from time to time, we also have public engagement on the performance of GPL. Today's engagement will seek to give you a holistic review of how we're doing and where we're going. And we'll continue to update you with our quarterly reports, which we're looking to do at the end of April, July, and November. Today's engagement, we also have an obligation to make public how we're doing based on our code of governance. But getting into the meat of the matter, if we can look at the trends. I want to talk briefly on how much money has gone into GPL, how our customer base and our revenue and collections are doing, a bit about technical and commercial losses, but this will be dealt with in a lot more detail with other speakers. Fuel cost, our single largest expenditure, our generation and generation capacity. And I'm going to look at all of this for the last few years, with emphasis up to 2012. And then I'll quickly highlight what are the key challenges we face today, and then where are we going in the next 5 years. A quick summary of expectations. In the last 7 years, we've seen an investment level in GPL that has been substantial. We've seen over 225 million US dollars expended in GPL between the years 2006 and 2012. Last year alone, we had 10 billion of expenditure. 10 billion dollars, 50 million US. Some of this has been funded by GPL, but most of it has been funded by government and various loans that are on lent to GPL. So, of the, it's quite a substantial sum that has come from government. These amounts for capital are generally not grants, but are loans that have to be repaid. Generally, the funds come through various lenders to the government, be it the Chinese Import-Export Bank, which is financing the transmission project, or the Petro-Carib Fund from Venezuela, or the IDB, and then they are lent on to us at interest rates that are in the range of 3% on a long-term basis. If we look at where these funds have been applied, we can see that 44 billion in the last 7 years, or 225 million US, $18 billion went into generation. As you know, we have increased our Wärtsilä fleet from 44 megawatts in Demerara, whereby by the end of this year, it will be over 105 megawatts once the new grid and new plant is completed. So we have doubled, more than doubled, will be more than doubling our Wärtsilä capacity, which has been very stable and reliable. Quite a bit of money has gone into transmission and distribution, 13 billion. Some of this is financed from the Chinese Import-Export Bank loan, and includes creating an integrated network between Berbice and Demerara, and construction of 7 new substations and upgrades of 2. In addition to that, we've had a significant sum invested in metering. Metering is a very important activity in helping to reduce our losses where we're facing significant challenges. We've had quite a bit spent on loss reduction activities too, and then other investments which would include our new customer information system that came online in 2010. Now, as we invest, we are investing in a growing company. In the last 7 years, our customer base, we built connections to connect over 45,000 customers. 2011 had the highest level of customers, a little over 9,000. 2012 last year, a little over 6,000. But our total number of customers is now 166,000 customers. Now, this represents an increase of over 30% in the last 7 years in the number of customers that we have. And let me say that this is a remarkable achievement when you consider that between 2004 and 2012, you have over 40,000 new connections. When you think about it, you have that many more customers. It's in parallel with the significant housing drive that we've seen going on in the economy. So we now have 40,000 more customers over a 7-year period, over 30% more of our total customers in 2004. So more people are connected to the grid, more people have electricity legally, more people have houses and are therefore connected to the grid. So this is reflective of the increasing demands in the utility, but it's also reflective of the trends that we're seeing in our economy. Now, our revenue level has grown significantly. In the last 6 years, our revenue has gone from 19 billion to 29 billion. That's roughly a 50% increase in revenues. We had a very small tariff increase in 2008, 6 to 9% for residentials, 15 for industrial and commercial customers, 15%, and 20% for government. So most of this movement in revenue is driven by additional customers, improvement in efficiencies. Our losses are down to 31% from a high of 44%. So we've seen a tremendous increase in revenue. Our collection levels are running quite good. In the last 2 years, 2011, 2012, we've generally been collecting as much as we bill. Now part of this will reflect, when you see you collecting more, part of this will reflect back billings where we find people stealing or tampering with meters. So your revenue last year, the last 2 years, is slightly above what you bill, because you're able to go back, usually up to 2 years, and reclaim revenue where customers have been found tampering, or basically where they've been understated. But the trend in the revenue is quite significant. To move from 19 billion to 29 billion in a matter of 6 years, an increase of 50%, where the average tariff movement over that period is less than 10%, represents a significant movement of volume and efficiencies. Now that being said, although over 90% of our customers are residential, they only account for about 40% of our revenue. Put another way, 10% of our customers, representing the commercial and industrial customers, represent 60% of our revenue. So GPL, with 10% of our customers, we collect 60% of our revenue. And that is because they are large consumers, industrial users, and so on. Moving on to losses. The current picture of losses is not very encouraging. We've seen in the last few years that losses have been stagnating. As I mentioned, it came down from a peak of almost 44%, and it's now at 31%. But what is of concern is that whilst it's come down from 34.3% in 2009 to about 31%, losses has been stagnant in the last 3 years. Now, our technical losses have been rising. We're putting more load onto an already overloaded network. Our commercial losses, though, have been stagnating also. And we'll speak more extensively on this, because addressing losses is not only actions on the part of GPL, but it's also addressing a culture issue where people seek to steal electricity, seek to bypass the meters, or connect to the grid, or any other forms of diversion. And our progress in the courts has been very slow and limited. But we'll speak more to losses during the course of the morning. Moving on to our largest single expenditure, fuel. Our fuel bill between 2006 and 2012 has almost doubled. We've shown what we're projecting for 2013. We're roughly in line with last year. But if you look at what our fuel expenses was in 2006, you'll see it was about $60 million US. At the end of last year, it was $118 million US. So practically a doubling in about 7 years of our fuel bill.
Generation capacity, are there any plans to phase out the generator? And the second one is, will the transmission and distribution system will be in optimal condition at the end of the Chinese load, depending on the end user?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Currently, our available generation capacity, and this is throughout the system, is about the chairman mentioned. As you know, we're currently constructing a 26 megawatt plant at Regency, our solar plant. We expect that the plant will achieve commercial operation before the end of the year. To be completed before the end of the year also. And so when the work is completed, we have a total of 106 megawatts of solar capacity available in Demerara. He did mention that some of the solar sets, in fact two, the first two that were installed at Gardner Bean would be 20 years this month. And we had mentioned that we had a failure on a set which is 2 years older. We had to replace that engine last year, and that is in commercial operation. We had said that specialists who were sent by our underwriters to investigate the failure of that engine could not have concluded on what caused the failure. And they're finally saying it's material metal fatigue. What we're doing out of precaution is when the new plant is up and running, these older sets will basically be removed from baseload operation and be reverted to standby duty. So we will have enough capacity. In fact, in Berbice, you might have heard the Gaisuka doing another thing in dimensions of the skeleton factory to improve the reliability of power generation there. As part of the Chinese work, we are going to link the Berbice system with the Demerara system, forming the Demerara-Berbice interconnected system. And of course, with that, and should operations improve at Skeldon, then we have the option of using Skeldon and the 106 megawatts of reliable capacity we have in Demerara to actually serve all consumers in the Demerara-Berbice system. On the question of losses, this continues to be a thorny issue. What we should say is that we had said publicly that we had our approach to this in the past was to continuously plead work with our consumers to try to change this culture while using the police and other methods to try to get people physically off the system. The fact is, the chairman said we had an interaction with a number of experts who are undertaking a massive loss reduction project in the Dominican Republic, over 300 million US in loss reduction interventions alone in the DR. And they came here, they spent an entire week with us, and they left us with a lot of advice. They left us with different designs for a distribution system, which with assistance from financing from the IDB, we're seeking to implement. The fact is, we have to take a highly technological approach to dealing with the problem of losses. We cannot continue to plead with people to change the culture. It is not happening. It's not happening certainly at the rate that would see this problem disappear over some reasonable time. So the technological approach is saying that for the network, we want to put in a network that is essentially fraud-proof. We want to put in a metering system that is the best available on the market now in the world. And that system is so sophisticated that we can sit in our office and basically carry out a whole set of diagnostic tests on our meters out there. So when the meters are being installed and consumers, as they're doing now, are solicited, in fact, the people who are installing the meters in some cases to tamper with the meters and soliciting others to tamper with the meters shortly after they're installed. In the future, we'll be able to sit in the office and run regular diagnostic tests of those meters to verify whether in fact they've been tampered with. And these meters come with a series of very sophisticated features that would give GPL the kind of intelligence it needs to deal with this problem. So in the system of the future, which we are envisaging, we'll have a smart system, a system that allows GPL to act on very strong intelligence. So when we go out there, we come to your home, we know exactly why we're coming here, and we have the evidence to show you. Thank you.
You mentioned that critical staff are being lost to either other companies or because they were dismissed because of corruption. How do we plan to deal with this problem?
I'm sure if you basically were to ask any company, large engineering company in Guyana, they'll complain about the paucity of critical skills. GPL is a large engineering company, and it's a major problem. We have lost over the recent years some of our very senior engineers, managers to self-migration, self-sponsorship to Canada. We are losing people all the time to Caribbean territories and other countries, in particular the US, to a lesser extent, countries in Europe. The fact of the matter is, there is no easy answer to this. Okay? When you lose somebody with 15 years experience, you cannot replace them, not in our business in GPL. And so what we're doing is that we're training young engineers with the expectation that they will stay here long enough to provide us with some service. Okay? In 2004, 2005, I keep saying this, we brought in 41 graduates. Of late, we've only had 5 of those persons still with us. So it's a major problem, and of course, it puts a tremendous burden on the few people who've been here and who have quite a bit of institutional knowledge. It is something that we don't have an easy answer for, but we'll have to continue to ensure that we are training people and maintaining them in the system, of course, as long as they're willing to stay. All right, I don't know that any local entity has really solved the problem. We cannot compete with salaries in North America. Even in the Caribbean, it is difficult for GPL to compete. But locally, we are probably in the top tier, maybe 5% of, where salaries are concerned. We possibly are in the top 5% category. So locally, we can compete, but we can't compete regionally, neither for the field.
If there are no other questions, I'd would like to say thank you very much to all the houses represented today. I know you've taken time out of your busy schedules to be here with us, and we look forward to engaging you in the future as we seek to bring to the public information on the operations of GPL. Thank you very much.